Greetings, my fellow and brothers, self and thinkers. L3Views podcast. My name's Craig, transmitting from the beautiful swampy land of South Florida. And today's date is Wednesday, March 20th, 2019. So let us begin. Yeah, thanks for tuning in, my friends. Pretty rainy earlier in Fort Lauderdale, but looks like it's going to be clearing up. I'm at Collective Cafe, located in the heart of downtown Fort Lauderdale, along Broward Boulevard, east of US 1, and right beyond Northeast 7th Avenue in Victoria Park District, the southern tip to be exact. Yes, I keeping tabs on what's going on in the horrific event that happened in Christchurch, New Zealand. And of course, you got everyone out there jumping on the bandwagon. They hear these buzzwords: white supremacist, neo-Nazi, white power, all that. And to be very frank, you should always read a manifesto before jumping on the bandwagon from the mainstream garbage media, because they like drama. They hate accuracy. They try to attract people with buzzwords. It's nothing new. It's right part of the propaganda playbook from Edward Bernays' writings from 1928. Public Relations. Mind Control 101. And of course, they even got some of the so-called patriot sites, or more the controlled opposition. Oh, they don't, why should I care who they got killed? Look what happened in Paris. See, what you're observing and people are participating is a game of collective witch hunting. Very dangerous indeed. You folks out there that want to be part of the herd conformity, you don't learn about history. Ignorant, stagnant, mindless. Doesn't mean it's like you be like that forever. I've read the manifesto and I see a lot of pinpoints. There's some memorable points in there, but how organic is it? I can see they got the cues from the late William Pierce from the National Alliance. The Might is Right from they call it a fictional character author named Redguard Redbeard. There's a claim that Jack London, a great American author who wrote The Sea Wolf and a few others, and Arthur Desmond from New Zealand, they used some of that white or Aryan pride. And of course, stuff from William Cooper, The Behold a Pale Horse, On Comes the Victim Disarmament. How deep does the rabbit hole go? Well, so far I've been getting reports from NewsBuzz and a few others that took the time to do their research. There's a lot of merit behind it. I wouldn't be surprised if this man is a Israeli or Mossad operative. All you guys say is just examine these articles. Plenty of websites to go to. Hit the YouTube as well before they shut it down. Seen the video too. Very treacherous indeed. And I remember the time people forget the St. James Church massacre that happened in South Africa, Cape Town, around July 25th. I could be mistaken, but 1993, when a group of men went in, part of the show, threw grenades into the crowd, tapped it with shrapnel. A lot of people suffered, but 900 lives were saved. Charles Van Vick was one of those men that actually carried a snub revolver, while they had AK-47s. Took a while to really stop it, because things do occur. And now here in New Zealand, they want to, Prime Minister Ardern wants to have tougher gun laws. They had licenses, for goodness sakes. And this man was from Australia. How you got the firearms with that license? You can make all the laws you want. It's not going to prevent anything from happening. Based on her solutions, she is part of the Orwellian echo chamber, the New World Order. That's what I tell folks. People trying to leave the United States, what's going on since September 11th, move places to New Zealand. I go, it's happening worldwide. You know, a gentleman named Leon from Fair Dickum Radio, which is not on the air anymore, talked about what was going on in the Oceania region, Australia, New Zealand, on globalism. So this is why, my friends, don't fall for the Orwellian echo chamber. Race, ethnic, gender guilt is for the herd conformity, the mindless sheep, witch hunting cowards. Many of you out there, or your friends or colleagues, you can share this on my viewpoints in these areas and prove me wrong if you dare. I'm not saying this out of arrogance, but in good faith. I see this stuff on Facebook all the time. I'm just like, good grief. It's pathetic. They did the same thing with the blacks in the 80s and so forth. Everyone's being arrested, all the blacks. You know, they treat them like they're all a bunch of animals or a bunch of dummies. Same thing with the Chinese, with the cartoons and Hollywood propaganda films. Oh, there was just a bunch of dummies with their all have buck teeth and making fun of them. I condemn all that, including right now. So, friends don't let friends enter the Orwellian echo chamber, because it can bite you in the rear end or blow back in your face when least expected. Always think for yourselves, friends. That is essential. If not, we all lose, and the globalists, the Orwellian and institutions will benefit, and you'll be shackled symbolically. Well, I'm not going to be talking about this on what happened over there in New Zealand shootings. So I recommend all you folks out there, hit News Buzz, hit all these sites, No More News, and a few others. Even Activist News does a good job from it as well. It looks like they're being censored, okay, or suspended their YouTube account. And there's even a claim too that Vinny Eastwood from New Zealand was doing a live feed. They cut him off because they question, they examine. They don't go with all the rhetoric. This is why, my friends, you have to do the same thing. That's what spiritual warfare is all about. Fear is the greatest weapon. Mind control is their hobby. So, you're going to be a sovereign or a technocratic peasant. You know where I stand. And hopefully you did it. All right, enough of that. I'm going to be going to a couple of things here only. Looks like I have a little signal issue in this facility, but it's not mad at them or anything. These things happen. Sometimes you have a whole bunch of folks coming in and they all like take over the Wi-Fi. Well, this is interesting here about firearms. It's from the Organic Prepper. Came out today. It's a rebellion. Second Amendment sanctuary cities, counties, and states spring up across country. And this is by Dagny Targert. And as it reads, sanctuary cities aren't just for immigrants anymore. A growing number of states, counties, cities, and towns are declaring themselves Second Amendment sanctuaries and are refusing to enforce gun control laws that infringe on the constitutional right to keep and bear arms. I could say natural rights as well, folks. I like to add that to it. While adapting ordinances and resolutions to defy gun laws, that isn't a new tactic. Momentum is rapidly building, likely in a response to increasing calls for more gun control at state and federal levels. Sheriffs in several states say they will not enforce gun control laws. Sanctuary counties and towns are passing resolutions that state no funding will be used to enforce unconstitutional laws and that the sheriff will uphold his oath to the Constitution instead of enforcing laws that violate the Second Amendment. County sheriffs are legally speaking the last line of defense for the battle for gun rights. Federal agencies do not have the state powers due to constitutional structure to dual sovereignty. The feds have no authority to enforce state laws. Furthermore, states can be compelled to enforce federal laws. Good example, I say once again, Federal Papers 46 by James Madison. Here's a rundown of the states with jurisdictions that have adopted Second Amendment sanctuary resolutions. Colorado. In Colorado, 23 of 64 counties have adopted new Second Amendment sanctuary resolutions, and others are considering implementing similar resolutions. Legislators and sheriffs in the state are pushing back against House Bill 19-1177, a red flag bill that will become law soon. For full analysis and critique of this bill, give this a read. Couple and Green Line's plenty of red flags in Colorado's extreme risk protection order bill. And the question to have for the folks in Colorado, those Scumbag legislators, treasonous parasites, oath breakers under Article 12, Section 8 of their own Constitution. How does this exceed Article 2 of your supreme law of your state? You have no merit. Don't get defensive. Hot air don't count around me. Prima facie, just cause does. Now we'll proceed. Officially called Extreme Risk Protection Orders, or ERPO. Red flag laws permit police, healthcare providers, or family members to petition a state court to order the temporary removal of firearms from a person who may present a danger to others or themselves. Weld County recently joined a growing list of counties in Colorado that have passed Second Amendment sanctuary resolutions in response to the impending red flag law. Commissioner Barbara Kernmeyer, one of the HB 19-177 harshness critics, said the severity of this bill cannot be overstated. The name of this bill is Extreme Risk Protection Orders. I think it's a facade, and I think it's fraudulent. I think actually this bill has been entitled Extreme Order to Confiscate Your Firearms, Eliminate Due Process, and Violate your Constitutional Rights Bill. Well, she's damn right. I like that a lot. And it says here, Weld County Sheriff Steve Reams agrees this bill is so riddled with constitutional problems that makes it hard to understand how professional lawmakers could have constructed something so terrible. Reams said adding the bill raises some serious concerns about due process, and that person can have their guns taken away and their rights violated, all without having a chance to appear in an initial court hearing and cross-examine accusers and witness in person. In legal terms, this is an ex parte hearing. I hope Senator Rick Scott understand your stupidity made us a reality. And I'm talking about Florida Senator Gary Farmer as well, another Sputnik douchebag, treasonous quack who represents me in Fort Lauderdale. He is not my senator. He's my enemy politically. I will continue on here. And Reams added that one of the biggest problems with the law is does not address actual mental health issues. It allows only guns to be taken away, leaving the person in the same position without medical help. Illinois, to date, 63 out of 102 counties or municipalities in Illinois have adopted Second Amendment sanctuary resolutions. More are expected. Hey, if you read their state constitution, the right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Fantastic. At least as people in Illinois know how to read. How about the ones in Cook County, Chicago? Implement these stuff. If not, you're a bunch of treasonous cowards. Including all the elected stooges in there that support tyranny and breach their oath of office. Maryland, 3 out of 23 counties have adopted Second Amendment sanctuary resolutions. The question I have, if you read how some of these laws are trying to do in Maryland, how to supersede the Declaration of Rights in the Commonwealth? Zero. All right? All you got to do is read, folks. Nevada, Sheriff in Nye County and Eureka County have said they oppose new gun laws in the state and will not enforce them. Exactly. Don't blame them one bit. These sheriffs and counties, they know how to read. Not like these butt slammers out there. I say it symbolically. The Uncle Toms and Aunt Jemimas in Carson City that support these stuff. Nye County Sheriff Willie and Sheriff Jesse Watts of Eureka County both wrote separate letters to Psaki and Attorney General Aaron Ford expressing their opposition to the law. In Germany, prior to World War II, we saw Hitler place restrictions on the public's right to bear arms. Willie said in the letter, I agree with Sheriff Watts. I will not participate in the enforcement of this new law and certainly will stand silent. Watts wrote in his letter that he would not stand by while citizens are turned into criminals due to the unconstitutional actions of misguided politicians. You should say treasonous politicians. You're being too nice there, Sheriff. I love you, but you're being too nice. Elko County may soon join Nye and Eureka. Commissioners are there to plan to vote on the resolution to become a Second Amendment sanctuary county at the meeting on March 20th. That should be today. New Mexico. New Mexico's new Democratic governor, Michelle Lujan Grisham, was sworn into office on January 1st. Democrats in the state rushed to expand gun control. Those bills were met with opposition from most of the New Mexico's sheriffs. I heard, too, she is a George Soros playmate. I think that'd be a good term to say about her, right? Of the 33 sheriffs in the state, 29 have voiced disapproval of the package of anti-gun legislation by issuing the declaration through the State Sheriff Association, stating that to rush to react to the violence by proposing controls on guns is ill-conceived and is truly a distraction to the real problems, proliferating violence in our counties and our state. All you gotta do is read their state constitution, folks. So it's called the Bill of Rights. It's Article 2. Look it up. New York. After the New York SAFE Act was passed in 2013, some New York counties passed resolutions in opposition. There are currently 52 counties with such resolutions, and the New York State Sheriff's Association sued to block the law. North Carolina, just a day ago, county in North Carolina joined the resistance. Cherokee County has passed three-page resolutions with a slim 3-2, as a resolution authored Don Eichenbaum told fellow commissioners that the first dictators to do is confiscate guns, reported the Cherokee Scout. Among the provision is a warning that Cherokee County will not authorize or appropriate government funds, resources, employees, agencies, contractors, buildings, detention centers, or offices for the purpose of enforcing laws, orders, mandate, rules, or regulations that infringe on the right to people, by the people to keep and bear arms. Oregon. Of the 36 counties in the state, 13 have adopted Second Amendment sanctuary resolutions that are surely more to come, according to a recent report by Reuters. Organizers in the Oregon plan must be a more defiant sanctuary ordinance measures on county ballots in 2020 that will direct their officials to resist state gun laws. Washington. In late January, the state of Washington made news when several sheriffs in the state publicly vowed not to enforce the new unconstitutional gun laws that were passed in November. As of February 2019, the sheriffs of more than a dozen of the 39 counties have publicly stated that they will not enforce the law, though some said they will only refuse to do until a final adjudication of pending lawsuits against the legislation. Remember, folks, you got this thing called jury nullification as well. There are even three sanctuary states. The three bills have passed to protect two-way rights at the state level. Alaska, in 2013, Alaska passed HB 69, which declares certain gun control measures to be unconstitutional and made it unlawful for any state to assess to go toward the law enforcement of federal gun laws. It declares that guns and ammunition possessed by Alaskans exempt from federal gun laws. It also subjects to federal agents to felony charges if they try to enforce any future federal ban on semi-automatic weapons or ammunition or enforce any new federal requirement for gun registration. Republicans say they are willing to let the courts sort out the issues. They say they must stand up for the Second Amendment gun rights and won't bow down to the federal government on this. A number that said they heard from constituents who backed the bill. Some Democrats argue that a measure put Alaskans at risk of criminal prosecution if they ignore federal gun laws. While the bill allows the state to defend Alaskan charges of violent federal gun laws, there's no guarantee or that of help or any sign the federal government will back off. Well, the truth of the matter is, the person who started constitutional carry there was a gentleman named Eric Croft, who was a Democrat from Anchorage, and it was veto-proof in 2003. You can look it up, folks. It's pretty amazing stuff. Idaho. On March 14, 2014, Idaho Governor Butch Otter signed a bill prohibiting state law enforcement of any future federal act relating to personal firearms, firearm accessories, or ammunition, effectively nullifying future gun laws. Eric Pratt of Communications for Gun Owners of America cheered the governor's actions. By signing this nullification bill into law, Idaho has joined an elite class of states that are telling the feds to get lost, especially when it comes to unconstitutional gun control infringement. James Madison, the father of the Constitution, who advised this very tactic. Madison supplied the blueprint for resisting federal power in Federalist 46, which I talked about already. He outlined the several steps that can take the effective stop an unwarrantable measure or even warrantable measure of the federal government. Madison called for refusal to cooperate with officers of the Union as a way to successfully thwart state federal acts. Kansas. In 2013, Kansas Governor Sam Brownback signed Senate Bill 102, also known as the Second Amendment Protection Act, into law. Michael Bolden, the 10th Amendment, called the law the most comprehensive nullification of such acts thus far. You're talking to a guy who wasn't really created by Sam Brownback when he ran for president. However, I will say this in good faith, my friends, this is awesome. So I give him kudos, I give him homage for that, and the legislation, I'm backing this bill. The new law nullifies a wide range of federal attacks on the right to keep and bear arms in the state of Kansas, in states, in parts. Any law, treaty, order, rule, regulation of the government of the United States which violates the Second Amendment to the Constitution of the United States is null and void and unenforceable in the state of Kansas. In the conjunction with Section 6A above quoted, the bill defines what it meant by the Second Amendment to the Constitution of the United States that isn't based off a decision of the Supreme Court. The Second Amendment of the Constitution of the United States reserves the people individually the right to keep and bear arms as that right was understood at the time Kansas was admitted into statehood in 1861. The guarantee of that right is matter of contract between the state and the people of Kansas and the United States as of the time that the compact with the United States was agreed upon and adopted by Kansas in 1859 and the United States in 1861. What do you think about sanctuary resolution? Do you believe that will protect the rights of gun owners, or do you think the government will ultimately find a way to confiscate guns anyway? Share your thoughts, comment below, and you could, give them your intake. And I think it's awesome because one thing I experienced, one thing I love, because the 10th Amendment is a great remedy. And really exciting time to be alive, folks, when it comes to our rights. Another thing guys you need to focus on is the Fourth Amendment rights, warrantless searches and all that. Remember, the Bill of Rights stands for government keep out. And that's why there's laws like this in our state constitutions as well. In Florida, we have Article 1, Section 12. And even though they said we could do some certain regulations on Article 1, Section 8 of the Florida Constitution, we have a thing called basic rights, which all of our natural born rights are inalienable. So, including defending life, liberty, and property. So, it's one of the things you have to look at. So that's why I always say sometimes you gotta watch for these contradictions, but the truth of the matter is, when you know these things, the more you implement it, the less you fear. Knowledge is freedom, ignorance is enslavement, blatant ignorance. This is why we gotta always focus on these areas. Be vigilant, you never trust the government across the board. But one thing I gotta say, I do enjoy these resolutions. I think it's fantastic. And hey, thumbs up, man. This is beautiful. This is what the information war is all about. And it's supposed to be sovereign states, not incorporated under the 14th Amendment. So, which is, I say, is a legal law anyway, because I'm not being racist or anything like that. Plain and simple. So, I'm going to do one more here, my friends, which I'm going to be checking out here. Be doing one more here. Just make it pretty quick. This is here, came from Bob Livingston's Alerts, and it's by Brandon Smith. How to identify a globalist. In my work now analyzing the behavior and motive of the globalists, I often hear people question the validity of the label. Sometimes this is done by people who are truly uneducated and about the background of what I can only call an organized cabal or criminal syndicate. Sometimes it's done by dishonest people who are seeking to sow the seeds of doubt. To be clear, yes, globalists are a very real group with a very real agenda, and this agenda is not morally or rationally sound. The argument then arises, if the globalists are a real threat, then we should identify them one by one. Invariably, this argument is a ruse which insinuates that if a person points out the facts surrounding the crime on part of the globalist, his position is not valid until he names them all in succession. It's like, wait, I'm like, when I hear this stuff, people ask me, who are these guys? Do your homework first before you. When I tell people do your homework, don't just have me say it. Do your homework. Take the initiative and look it up yourselves. I can't blame them, Mr. Smith, for this. So his position is not. So this is the classic Alinsky tactic to demand that the whistleblower or researcher catalog every person involved in a conspiracy or present a solution to the criminality of which may or may not be available. Otherwise, they should shut up and stop talking about the problem. The intent is to get caught up in the weeds debating the extent of who is involved or whether one solution is superior to another. Yeah, exactly, like the left-right paradigm. I see it on Facebook all the time. Good grief, man. Very one-dimensional. Acknowledging that the specific agenda exists is at the first step before then anyone else can be accomplished. Obviously, one cannot outline a long list of globalist names in every essay or article. This would make each article dozens of pages long and is counterproductive. Naming names might be helpful in some circumstances, as I have done in the past, such as my article Global Disinformation Spotlight on Mohammed El-Iran. It's a good article, folks. Please read it. There's a link for that on the site. So check it out. I welcome readers to examine that article because El-Iran is a perfect example of what a globalist is, what kind of ideology they espouse. It is my feeling that though this is more important to focus on the behaviors, rhetoric, institution affiliations, and belief of globalists, because these elitists are often hide in plain sight. None of them publicly call themselves globalists. Some of them do. However, they all have the same character traits. They support the same agenda. First and foremost, I suppose I should address the so-called elephant in the room. It is important to note that there are concerted disinformation efforts by a small group of people lurking in the corners over the liberty movement to push a notion that globalism is purely a Jewish conspiracy. Their claim is all about the Jews. All the globalists are Jewish and somehow secretly related to Jews or married to a Jewish partner, etc. This is simply false. So let's get out of this. Let's get this out of the way. And I have to agree. And like when I talk about people with Jewish names and so forth, I think it's part of it. And the truth of the matter is, folks, I call people like that. I call them Ginos, Jew in name only. The attributes of the Pharisees and the Sadducees back in the times of the new century or new millennium. All right, when Christ was around, it's just a story. If you doesn't matter if you believe it or not, but it's just an example. That's why if you look at Revelations chapter 2 verse 9 and 3 verse 9, it talks about the fake Jews that are the synagogue of Satan. And it's paraphrased, but folks, look this up and but don't attack a particular group collectively, then you be the fool. All right. So I will continue on here. The Jewish conspiracy narrative, I believe, is a fourth-generation warfare, a psychological operation, an attempt to mislead liberty movement activists away from the much deeper and darker issue. It also may be an attempt to attach the movement to white supremacy or white identity groups, as if they are interchangeable. Frankly, I do not care what other people believe as long as they keep to themselves and leave others alone. If someone takes special pride in their pigmentation of culture, great. I wish them the best of luck. It is true that some cultures function better than others, but this is not far more than the superior cultures being more free, not more white. Just because we have this taste for race baiting, insanity, the hatred of white people, Western culture displayed by social justice left, this does not mean we need to swing to the other extreme and become zealots ourselves. I actually think the ability to discriminate at times is highly useful, but such simplistic divisions based on bias and broad generalizations make us weak, not strong. It makes us easy to conquer and not formidable opponent to this globalist. So all you folks out there that believes in this white supremacy, white privilege garbage, you better start waking up, because you are part of the problem. You're just an example too. Here are the facts. The vast majority of globalists are not of Jewish origin and are not Zionists in their political affiliations. While there are sectors of globalist institutions that have more Jewish people than others, such as the Federal Reserve, this does not indicate any sort of Jewish conspiracy. On the contrary, the electoral broad and members of the most globalist institutions have small minorities of Jews and majority of Anglo in origin, British. Or one can simply at the broad directors of groups at the top of the globalist pyramid, like the International Monetary Fund, the Bank for International Settlements, or World Bank, and verify that this is the case. We can also examine the attendees of past globalist summits like Bilderberg Group or the Economic Forum in Davos, and see that again some Jews might be involved, but not a majority or even the highest positions of authority. While the Rothschild family, Jewish, gets a lot of attention as being a major partisan within global circles, we can see they are but one influence among many. These people herald from all over the world and are from every ethnicity, national affiliation no one can imagine. So the broad brush of white identity conspiracy becomes rather useless in helping us figure out what the globalists truly are. In fact, it misleads us and points us in the wrong direction, and perhaps this is an underlying purpose. The fallback argument is that they may not be majority Jewish, but they are all Zionists, which is simply not true. Zionism is definitely a global scheme, but more side of design to manipulate some Jews and evangelicals into zealotry to be exploited in supporting efforts like war in the Middle East. Zionism itself actually makes Jewish centers like Israel less safe and more prone to destruction. Globalists only care about Israel or the Jewish people in general, in so much they can be used as a tool for other more important efforts. Yes, you could say Israel is a patsy nation, just like the United States and a few others. This is something to think about now, okay? While I have criticized the actions of the Israeli government on many occasions and been accused of being an anti-Semite for it, this is not the same as attacking the Israeli people. Globalism threatens them as much as it threatens others. Remember, it affects us worldwide. Something to think about. That's what the New World Order, Liberal World Order, One World Order, if everyone will call it, wants this to be a full reality. And I will proceed here. I welcome readers to look over the rosters of many of the top globalist organizations. They will find a minority of Zionists, not a majority. It is not about the Jews or Zionism than it was globalism really all about. It is a vow that we look at the intent, actions, motivations, and beliefs of these people. Hyper-focusing on the genetic backgrounds will get us nowhere. How do we know when we are dealing with the globalists? Well, let's look at some of the real and universal elements that make globalists an organized and identifiable culture, separate, distinct, and destructive. Globalism as the inviolable future. Globalists will also claim that globalism, the centralization of all government and economic power, is an inviolable byproduct or progress. They will state without any evidence, of course, that globalism represents a pinnacle of evolution in human society. Therefore, anyone that stands in the way of globalism is standing in the way of progress. But centralization of power is nothing new, and dreams of global empire ruled by self-appointed elites all goes all the way back to Plato and his Republic. Utopia by the elites, for the elites, is a tale as good as mankind. It does not represent evolution, but regression to an ideology that human beings have been struggling for thousands of years to escape from. We should also make the distinction here between globalists and useful idiots. Globalists are people in a position of power adequate enough to help affect the changes and agendas they describe. Useful idiots might espouse globalist rhetoric, but they have no power. They are used as a blunt weapon by globalists, but they are not globalists and will not likely benefit from globalism in the end. Another thing they can be used. And their sovereignty. Globalists treat the idea of sovereignty with disdain. Their attacks usually revolve around nationalism. They will innocently pontificate the virtues of open borders. They can also sometimes be caught criticizing the concept of individual sovereignty, but they do fancy the idea that they are unique and superior individuals. Individuality and freedom are meant for them, but not for the rest of us. Single economic authority and monetary system. A key element globalism is economic centralization, which makes perfect sense. When you understand the trade is the root of the civilization and survival, trade is almost as important as the air we breathe and the water we drink. The consistent plan presented by globalists that if the MIF in particular must become a bottleneck point for the global economic management, and that's the world's major currency will be absorbed by the IMF and into the SDR basket system. They're trying to do that with the yuan, with China. There's a lot of talk about they want to be the head currency now. And this is what's been going on. So it's like, so what happens if this occurs? They want to blame it on the Chinese and all. It's like a particular witch hunting, but you have to focus on the bigger picture. This will give the IMF the ability to dictate currency exchange rates on the whim, allowing them to hegemonize currency values until they are so similar that a single world currency becomes a natural next step. This final product will be a cashless society based on digital blockchain-based currency or cryptocurrency. Single world government. So folks out there with the cryptocurrency ordeal, you should look at everything across the board. Don't ever put all your eggs in one basket. Single world government. Globalists argue that the answer to most of the world's ailments is the one world governance, with the end of the nation states and cultural divisions in the name of peace. The UN is so far the impetus of this world is this effort, but it shadows various organizations like the IMF, BIS, World Bank, as well as dozens of the think tank organizations like the CFR, Tavistock, the Trilateral Commission, Bilderberg, DARPA, etc., etc. A practice model for this type of government can be seen in the European Union, Club of Rome agenda to be exact, which is controlled by a supranational national bureaucratic machine run by mostly faceless officials who are not elected and who do not answer to the public. Any politician that works closely with globalist institutions or think tanks is likely a globalist as well. Any politicians of governmental officials that associate regularly with known globalists is probably also a globalist. So you got to look at the Council of Foreign Relations membership roster, folks, as a very good example. You'd be surprised what's on there. Psychological similarities of globalists. Probably the most overwhelming empathy I have come in my 12 years of analysis of globalism and the nature of evil is that globalists are in fact tied together by a mental illness or psychological aberration. This occurred during my research on narcissistic sociopathy, or what some circles might call psychopathy. Criminology indicates that not all criminals are full-blown narcissistic sociopaths, but most are full-blown narcissistic sociopaths are criminals. Simply, more and more successful criminals than others, and this usually depends on the ability to blend in and mimic or manipulate normal people. Full-blown narcissistic sociopaths or psychopaths make up around 1% of any given population, but are responsible for the vast majority of violent crimes or criminal enterprises. The lion's share of the justice system resources are used in dealing with these people. They are 4 to 8 times more likely than the average person to use violence in daily interactions or as a tool to gain advantage, and 25 times more likely to end up in prison. If there is a long list of characters traits that make a narcissistic sociopath, but the defining features are completely lack of conscience and empathy and propensity for moral relativism, the ability of rationale and any of all destructive behavior, a desperate need to be adored or admired by anyone, everyone around them, feeling of being more special than most people, feeling of superiority delusions or grandeur, or an inherited right to manage the lives of others, impulsive desires, and deviant sexual inclinations, and elitist associations. They only associate with people they feel are like them or are equally superior. The defining fact of narcissistic sociopath and these traits are inborn and not a product of the environment. In some cases, the environment can play a role in activating these traits, but if a person is not born with them, they generally do not adopt them later in life because of traumatic environment. Following the documentaries like linked here and here is an excellent overview on high-level narcissistic sociopath. Don't worry, I'm going to post this on my speaker page, and you can see it for yourselves, folks. Narcissistic sociopaths define all forms of treatment and cannot be reformed. They have no concrete personality beyond traits. Therefore, if you remove the traits, they are left with nothing else. They are almost anti-human, while most people are born with unique personality combinations that narcissistic sociopaths have done. They mimic the personalities of those around them, mirroring behaviors and collecting or stealing quirks. Their primary drives are to fulfill their fantasies of superiority and godhood, as well as endless quests to satiate their dopamine addiction. The more deviant action and the more successful they are getting away with it, the more dopamine they generate and the more satisfied they feel. This leads to an endless cycle, seeking out more and more exploitation of others, which become less and less satisfying, which leads to even greater deviance. I came to realize in my studies that these characteristics describe almost exactly the observable behaviors of globalists. The difference between that globalists were so high functioning that they actually built a society of narcissistic sociopaths that operate a kind of cult or corporate entity. The only other historic example I could compare it would be the mob or other gangs that have blended into the surrounding normal society and operated in the midst. Provocateurs, infiltrators are good examples, folks. I don't know if a society of narcissistic sociopaths with its own tribal customs, mythologies, and beliefs has never been recorded before. While sociopathic people have been known in the past to organize into groups for mutual benefit, the globalists are something different. They are animally a well-maintained culture of parasites that has blended almost seamlessly with normal society in order to feed off non-psychopathic people. The best fictional representation I can think of it is the vampire. We can use psychic vampires too, so just give you folks an example. They are so similar, I sometimes wonder if folklore creatures like vampires were based on narcissistic sociopaths as a way to warn people of their presence. Globalists are indeed a culture, a secretive and occult phenomenon that wants so badly to be recognized and worshipped but fears public scrutiny. The motivation at the bottom of it is to condition or tear down normal, moral, and free society until it becomes a place in which they can openly be what they really are without fear of judgment or consequences. They want a terraformed civilization and make it a habitat that will accept them, a habitat for monsters surrounded by willing victims. And this is why, my friends, you don't fall for the Orwellian echo chamber. Break that spell. Always observe responsibly. Don't manifest on their rhetoric. We've all been swindled one way or the other, my friend. You can add me to the mix, which is understandable. I had those experiences too. But in due time, I learned from them and enhanced myself to be a better individual, and you can do the same. Use your brain, think for yourselves, observe responsibly, and be critical. This is what I always say about one thing we can always use. Great practice, demoniac resistance. Defy all forms of tyranny, including these individuals who are considered part of the globalist connection. And that is it. I thank everyone for listening. Plus, feel free to download and share throughout social media networks. If you have any questions, comments, or you send something interesting you want to check out, whatever you do, please send your correspondence to Decorum. Furthermore, I will post this on my Spreaker page, including my social media sites and emails if you want to contact me, and so forth. All right? Once again, thank you for your time. Plus, always remember that demoniac resistance helps the soul and can liberate humanity. Until next time, take care of yourselves. Keep on spreading the love, and may your guardian spirits be with you.